I'm not going to sing this week, lads, because I'm trying to do all these controls. I can't sing and do controls at the same time.
Are we live? Hey! Hello, everybody. It's great to see you all tonight of a Tuesday night of an international weekend, an international break, pointless existence, really. In tonight, we're going to be doing four topics that the lads have picked. One sort of influenced by machinations that went on today, one that was relevant to what's going on at the moment, a nice airy-fairy one from Jamie, and then we've also got Gar's main topic, which he came up with on Friday, but unfortunately he'd forgotten it and then remembered it again on Monday morning. But the first thing I want to ask tonight is Jamie, you're from Scousland, right?
Okay, where are you going with this?
I'm just.
How are you,
just
Phil? You okay, mate? You're looking after
I'm
yourself.
all right, mate. It's great to have you back on the podcast.
Yeah, it's great to be back. Go on.
Why
do I have a feeling this will be my last one for a while? Go on.
I just want to see it's a way that I can get Jamie to leave in the middle of the podcast. That's really what it is. But no, you're from Scousland, right? And it's a common refrain that it's Scouse, not English, right? Now, I've noticed your tweets about England teams and stuff like that, and I'll let you away with it because you are probably just a bit homesick, so we won't go there. But today, I'm a bit confused because it seemed that Manchester had a much more stronger independent streak than Liverpool had when it came to the restrictions that was going on. From your point of view, and from listening to the lad and talking to your mates and all back home, is there a bit of a sense of disappointment in terms of the politicians and the representatives that are sitting there at the moment for Liverpool, in terms of representing them to the government as a whole when it comes to this coronavirus pandemic that's going on?
You threw a curveball at me there, Phil.
Is there a question in there somewhere?
Yeah. I just think, to be honest, I don't know if it's aimed so much at the politicians. I think it's just a frustration in general. And I feel like the city is an easy target for a lot of politicians sometimes. And this just looks like it's in keeping with a very consistent theme that Liverpool likes to be dumped on. So whether it's a case of our politicians not doing enough, I'm not sure it's that, but it just feels like we've been shafted by the establishment again, and a lot of hard-working good people are going to suffer as a result.
Absolutely. I'm just surprised that they see that again. If you look at the Manchester response, it was a lot stronger in terms of what they weren't prepared to just accept it, and they were prepared to take a legal challenge against them if they were moved into tier 3 without the stats being handed over to them and the reasons behind it. And I think it's a fair challenge. I would have expected to see the same sort of level of solidarity to go at the exact same thing as the Liverpool side, but obviously the appetite isn't there at the moment, or they are recognising the issues they have within the hospitals themselves. Anyway, the reason I sort of threw that is to take us into our first topic tonight on the forum. And join us, as you might have seen, we do have Andy Young up the top there, just in case he wants to throw somebody else off a high place. Beside him, we have Gar Jamie, almost in his own new studio. You notice Gar has a bit of memorabilia that's going up, and there's pictures of jerseys and stuff like that. And Gar, who's in the shorts behind you?
In the shorts behind me?
Yeah.
There's no one in the shorts behind me.
What's that red picture then?
Van Dijk and Henderson.
All right, well, you should have got bigger pictures. Nobody will be able to recognise them from that far away. And then, of course, we've got Jamie up in his home attic studio. That's there at the moment. We won't say what's in your pictures behind you, Jamie.
I'll cover it. I'll cover it wherever it is.
Can you zoom in there, Andy? Can you?
Hang on, right. we put Jamie in his own, maybe.
Oh, that's me. That's you.
How do you do, Jamie?
I don't know. You'll have to ring his missus. Anyway, right. So, right, lads. Leading on from the Liverpool coronavirus chat there, I want to take it into the international football. Right, I have this. I tweeted. I think it was back in August. As we're heading into the first ridiculous international break. That was like I think 10 seconds after they kicked off in the first matches of the season. And I purposely, I keep saying, I need to cop that on. I purposely said at that stage they needed to bin off international football this year. And I'll go further. They need to bin off European football. And I'm talking Champions Leagues and Europa League. It makes zero sense to me, and this is a topic I want to discuss, makes absolutely zero sense to me to have players leaving the countries that they're in, flying off all over the world to random stuff, and coming back and being coronaed, not coronaed, false positive, negatives, positives. I personally think Liverpool should have prevented any of their players travelling once they had the 3 cases in the camp. In the same way, Leipzig refused to let any of their players travel over this international break. And I do think there's a big issue for the league when these players return back, because if you look at the state of some of the international setups, like Guinea, where Kate has gone and he's picked up coronavirus, right? It's not safe. This isn't safe. And I think there's a bigger piece that needs to be asked around here about how safe is it for players just to have 2 weeks off and come back when they've been tested as corona positive. If you look at the likes of the American football, where they've done lots of research into, and you can correct on what this is, but it's hypermyocarditis or something like that, where it's the some form of enlargement of the heart, which happens after you've had a positive diagnosis, and it takes up to 3 to 4 months for it to fall away, which is something that was prevented 2 of the big college leagues from going ahead initially at the start. However, Andy, I'll start with you on this. Do you think there is a legitimate reason to play any type of football outside of the domestic leagues this season?
Well, we could use it as a really good excuse to just bin off international football altogether. It doesn't seem like anyone enjoys it anymore. There needs to be a serious reform. I mean, they're trying out different things with Nations Leagues and different silly setups to qualify for massive tournaments. But it's just becoming more and more disruptive all the time. And I know we're going to get onto it a bit later with the Project Big Picture, the shittest name ever. But they need to kind of be sensible about how they restructure how many games teams are playing. And at the moment, it's totally unnecessary for teams to be travelling. I mean, I'm actually quite surprised that the Champions League is going ahead this year, because people aren't supposed to be travelling around. The football is trying to send out the right messages of how they conduct themselves on the pitch. Yeah, they're going away, they're travelling, which should be deemed unnecessary. I mean, I think every football should be just played at home this season. That's just my personal view, and that's not really my bias against international football at all, because I love the Champions League, and I think that should be really binned off this year. Mm-hmm. But money talks and stakeholders talk. It's not really about what we think anymore.
Yeah.
If there was another reason to dislike international football, this seems to be it. I think from my side, it just seems all very unnecessary. I think it seems like a risk that doesn't need to be taken. Well, I think when you look at it as well, you've got confidence of clubs being able to stay within their bubbles. When they're in and around each other, there's talk about the bubbles and staying within those. But then you've got people coming from all different leagues, collectively coming together in environments that clubs aren't able to control and monitor. And what it's going to do is it's ultimately going to bring players back that are infected. There's then risk of them infecting other club teammates. And I suppose, opening that up to a wider thing is, then do you run the risk? And I know, Andy, we kind of touched on this earlier on in the WhatsApp group. If you think of the integrity of competitions, particularly around the Premier League, if different teams are, I suppose, hit harder by COVID and they have top players missing for certain games, and they're still able to field a team, so the game isn't going to be cancelled. Are you looking then at and questioning the integrity of the competition? Because ultimately, in big games of the season, teams are missing key players through I suppose, situations like this, which ultimately could have been avoided.
Gar.
Well, if you look, I suppose we only have to take our own situation in as of the Irish game and the whole setup and the way things went down with the 2 guys getting pulled out of the squad just before the first game, and then this mad text went around that they were left off the team sheet as an administrative error. No, it wasn't. It was because obviously tests had gone through the team, and now it's turned out that coach and staff have tested positive, and 5 other players. So that just shows you in a matter of days how an international side has been affected hugely. And these players have now to go back to club. Obviously, will be in isolation or whatever. But a couple of tests have since come back as false positives, or whatever way you want to really do it these days. It's a pure mess. And as you say, it should have been knocked on the head with the numbers that had increased in the UK and Ireland. It should have been just knocked on the head and just said no. We'll play it again or whatever.
Yeah, For me, there's two questions here, right? And I purposely asked both international and European, right? I think it was Kev O'Sullivan said, or somebody else said back there, that money talks, and ultimately the Champions League generates too much money for them to stop it, right? The same as the Europa League, and whether people like it or not, clubs get the likes of Spurs and Arsenal will take the money out of the Europa League, even if it means having to get to the quarters or semis is the same as only making it through or playing in the group stages of the Champions League. However, and this is the big thing, Jamie mentioned bubbles. There is no bubbles. Like if you look at the Liverpool cases, they came while those players have been in bubbles, right? You look at the other cases that have gone around the league, and I think any league
come from Thiago though, Phil. Is that not we're thinking that it infiltrated into the camp and then everything sort of spiraled from him? No,
because the Shaqiri one was a false positive, so he took a test and he was positive. Then it turned out he took a second test and he was negative, right? Kate has gone off, and he's picked up somewhere, right? And they're saying, is this coming back to what it is? And Mane has it, right? I would say to you, though, Jamie, there's as much chance of them picking it up, going to a local restaurant, going to a local shop, going out and just being out and about, or somebody in their household getting it. The only true bubble that's been implemented in sports so far has been the NBA, where they took all the players off, locked them up in a resort in Orlando. They weren't allowed to leave. Nobody's allowed into them. No, their families haven't been into them. So the Lakers and the Heat who played there at the weekend have been in a bubble for the best part of 14 weeks. They haven't seen their family and haven't left that resort in 14 weeks. Right now, that's a true bubble, and they've had no cases in there. And that's not going to happen in soccer. And soccer is in the same way the American football is now starting to see exactly the same issues, because the teams are starting to pick up cases and it's starting to spread like wildfire through their squads. The issue we have is it's fine if it's one or two cases and it's kept isolated and the protocols work. Once that stops being one or two and 6, 7, 8, 9, and I will say Manchester City, for all the abuse they get, they had 6 or 7 potential cases and that were self-isolating. I don't think they turned out to be positive, but there were 6 or 7 cases where it was believed they may have it and they had to stop because of close contacts. It's more than just the players getting it. It's their families getting it and bringing that back into their family circle, because that's their bubbles. That's the bubbles we're talking about here. And all it takes is an Olympiacos. It just takes, say, Ajax in the game that we're playing, an explosion in Amsterdam, let's say, and somebody in their team picks up 5 or 6 of them get it. Suddenly 5 or 6 of them, and it's inevitable that games will have to be postponed or cancelled, or walkovers will be given because you can't feel the team, as happened with Napoli and Juventus in Italy there a while back, when Napoli weren't allowed travel. In the same way that Liverpool are in a tier 3 lockdown in terms of what the government are saying, in Italy, Napoli weren't allowed travel by the local authorities because they were subject to the same rules and were told they wouldn't be allowed travel to games until such time as the caseload came down within the city. So there is more than just football here that's going to govern whether these things go ahead. How do Liverpool play a Champions League game if point blank people aren't allowed into the surrounds of Merseyside while this is going on?
Do you think that there's a chance, Phil, then, because you're more well-read and passionate about this than most, judging by your Twitter timeline? Do you think that there's a chance? I mean, there's talk of a circuit breaker, in society, everything going into lockdown, whether it's for a couple of weeks or whatever. Do you think that there's a chance of that within football, in that the Premier League games are removed for a short period of time to try and, I suppose, stem the flow?
Again, there's. The only thing that works here, Jamie, these ideas of a circuit breaker lockdown only work if you're in a country that can rigorously enforce it across the whole of society. So Israel basically just threatened to kill everyone if they left their houses for 2 weeks. Like, do you know what I mean? But this is what we're talking about. In China, they locked you into your house, sealed the door, and you weren't allowed to leave the house. If you wanted goods or anything like that, they were delivered by the army or the police, whoever it was, too, right? In Singapore, again, people were told, stay in you're not allowed out. That's it. There's times you can do. That's not going to happen. And I hate to say this, and it's true about Ireland and it's true about England. You will not get that level of compliance happen in society. Look at London at the weekend, where they're having huge protests in Trafalgar Square just about having to wear masks. We're not talking
and games of cricket. And games of cricket when they came out the pub as well. Do you see that?
The London Palladium was full of people.
People with masks off as well.
What's the context there? Were they trialing something
in the Palladium? No, I think the Tories just wanted to have a concert or something like that. So Boris Johnson wanted to go for a night. So constant.
As you know, Phil, I've been giving out about the term lockdown from the very beginning, because in the UK and Ireland, we haven't actually had lockdown. Even in Spain, where my brother lives, like if you were on the street, the police would say to you, get fucking home or I'll shoot you. Like, you know what I mean? That's Spain. But it seems like in the UK and Ireland, we have these pretendy lockdowns. And the only time we had an actual close to a lockdown was when you were supposed to only travel out for necessary journeys, like, you know, to do your shopping, to look after the elderly, vulnerable, and get medication. And that's when we seen it actually take effect. And there was a huge stop in the rise of cases. For the last 2 months, we've been in Ireland anyway, operating in this pretendy kind of thing where we're kind of socially distancing, we're wearing masks, and the cases are rocketing because people are able to cheat. You know, there's so many people out there in their workplaces, in the shops. They're taking off masks, they're putting them on their chin, they're spitting all over the place. It all just looks for show. We're not compliant when it comes to these things. If we want to see it stopping, there has to be a real lockdown. And I don't think our economy or our people have the stomach for that. But that's anyway, we're getting off topic.
But I think it goes back into the larger point in terms of if you have, depending on the regional powers that certain cities have or governments have, what stopped the Champions League the last time was that Roma were prevented from travelling to Atletico Madrid, right? Or Barcelona, whichever, I can't remember what the game was, right? They were prevented from flying into Spain because the caseloads were so high. It had nothing to do with the safety of fans, players, or anything like that. Basically, one national authority said, you cannot come into this country because you're a risk to bringing this disease into where we've already got an explosion, right? We have the same issue exists when it comes to international football. If you take our 3 Brazilian players, I think only 2 of them went off this time on an international break. They go to Brazil where they have Bolsonaro, who literally doesn't care. He's another Trump, right? He's probably worse than Trump, and he doesn't even believe it's a dangerous virus, right? And it's rampant in that country. And they fly into Brazil, and then they come back to England. And as bad as England is in terms of the management of what's going on, the caseloads are still higher in Brazil. There's a greater propensity for them to pick it up because the safety and the whole lot around their national association isn't going to be as strong as the clubs, say, in England. And this is why I do not believe at this moment in time that international football serves any purpose. European football will not serve any purpose either, because all it will do, there's a greater likelihood that the competition will be stopped early and prevented, and then you get back to a rush situation, as opposed to starting the competition in March and potentially saying, right, lads, we're going to play like we did last year, a condensed form of the tournament. Yeah. I know they have a problem with the Euro 2020 being played in June or whatever it is. But ultimately, UEFA have 2 cash cows, and the international football is not one of them. The Champions League is the cash cow, because that's the one that brings the money in with the clubs and the whole lot. Football, well, international football.
The major tournaments must bring in billions. I don't know.
They do for the associations, but not for the countries hosting it. But I'll go back to Andy. There's not one major nation. This is being held all over Europe this year. If you think about the concept of this European, it's a null and void concept if this virus is still with us and there's no treatment or vaccine come next May. And so ultimately, we're playing a completely pointless set of games for a tournament that's very unlikely to go ahead unless there's a vaccine.
Can I just answer the couple of them comments coming up? Barry Devaney said that Sweden had the right idea. They didn't lock down. And then Super Torres replied, the Tories mentioned herd immunity and they were shot down. Look, your strategy for dealing with COVID-19 has to suit your available medical resources. And if you have the capacity to have people coming to hospital in their hundreds and thousands, then fine, go with herd immunity, go with no mask, go with no social distance, go with whatever you want, because you have the capacity to deal with all the sick people, and you have the capacity to continue on doing routine treatments, routine surgeries. In Ireland and the UK, as far as I'm aware, we don't. And that's why you have to have these lockdowns. We know now the virus isn't lethal as such. It's not killing young people. It's killing old and vulnerable people. It's not lethal, but it causes havoc when it overwhelms your health service. So no matter what approach you take, you have to protect your health service. That's the whole point of this. People constantly talking about how just go, fuck it, let it, protect the elderly, protect this, protect that. But even young people, even middle-aged people have to go to hospital to be treated, and they fuck up the whole health service. And it means that other people that need cancer treatments, heart treatments, are starved of that. So I don't think there is a right answer. You know
Andy,
what I mean?
can I just knock the herd immunity thing? Because at the start I was thinking the Swedes have the right way, and then I read into it more and deeper into it, right? Everything we are living at the moment was what the Swedes did on their so-called lax version of how they took it on, right? They did shut down services. They told people to take on personal responsibility to wear masks. They stopped bars from allowing people to have food and drinks inside. You could only get served when you're outside, right? They reduced social gatherings to 25 and 50 when it was going on. These are all the things that have been implemented now. So when people say we should follow the Swedish model, this is what you have. We have a form of the Swedish model in place where people, the Swedes took a personal accountability response. And yes, Kev made a good point as well. They also have, I think it's roughly 11.5 ICU beds per 100,000, right? Which is twice the capacity Ireland has. So we're talking about a country that can manage a surge in ICU beds, whereas a country like Ireland can't, and England for that matter have something similar. I think it's 7.5 or 8. I think they're in around the lowest quartile of ICU beds per 100,000 in Europe. So when people talk about this is what you have. You have the Swedish model. And unfortunately, when these health services get swamped, unlike Sweden, who has an incredible health service, there is no capacity, and you have to make these choices are being made because of the capacity in the health service. It's not about how lethal the disease is for 97% of the population. It's about how you manage through the people that need acute hospitalization. And I'm not a fan of lockdowns. I've said it from the outset. I believe people should have greater accountability, and they should follow, if they follow the guidelines, and I hate saying it, if you do the social distancing, you do your masking, and you do your washing your hands and stuff like that, that will have a bigger impact. And I will say one thing, and I've been saying it all week, we need to hear positive messages as well. An awful lot of the way our media is focused on main news stories is about fear and trepidation. The story about Dublin at this moment in time is quite a positive one, that our numbers in Dublin are going the right way. Right? I'm not saying we're not there by any way, shape or form, but the fact that we've actually managed to reduce the infection rate in Dublin under the tier 3, which is in Ireland, which is probably roughly a tier 2, will be the equivalent of the UK is, right?
Except in the Ireland camp, of course.
Except in the Ireland camp, but they weren't in Dublin. They were in Slovakia, Andy. So there's a whole different set of rules there. There's tier in Slovakia, so that's what that is, right? But I will say one thing: if it starts to work, and hopefully the rest of the country pulls through as well, then it should be a pat on the back for the plan that they put in place and following the plan. And I'm not one for patting politicians on the back in any party. I have no allegiances to any party. But I will say one thing: if we do manage to get this under control, it's a big pat on back to the people of Dublin, because I look around and there's a lot more compliance than there was, say, back in March and April when it comes to mask wearing and stuff and all that type of stuff.
Phil, whatever party's manifesto says ban international football, that's who I'm going to vote for the next
You're going to
time.
go for that. And Andy, since you are a greed merchant, like, I know the next topic is very important, right? And it is about did we say which way we're going? We're going with Gar's or yours, did I say?
We're going with the TV. Yeah, we're going to TV stuff first.
Let's go. Well, given that we've been stuck watching this absolute dross of cabbage shite football, right, which is international football. Like, it's basically League One. You've got absolute bell ends, like, I don't know, Stoneyhead, Maguire, and lads in the English team that are terrible. Look at the Irish team, and honestly, there's a Leinster Senior League 11 that would definitely put a match up to them at this stage, right? Everyone is backing Stephen Kenny, but they all forget that he failed miserably in Scotland. But Gar, right? So while this is going on, the Premier League drop a little sort of bomb there, saying, "You want to watch the matches? The match they can't see, 15 quid ahead." Right. So what's
nice
your take
on there, Phil? Nice segue there, mate. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a risky move, Phil, isn't it? I know they've got I believe from listening to radio today, they've a month to decide whether or not it'll still stand. I think a lot of people will go against it. Personally, I can't see people paying 15 quid a game, especially when I think Andy told me the first one's Burnley.
No, the first one is us, I think. And then another one announced was Burnley and
Burnley. Okay, yeah. Well,
Newcastle United as well as another.
Ain't many people paying 15 quid to watch Burnley, lads. Let's be 100% honest there. But it's a scummy move. Let's be honest. The way things are, I suppose, economically with people at the moment, the fans that can't get into games at the moment, clubs obviously changing their kit year in, year out, and charging 140 quid for jerseys. Andy, but no, seriously, let's, in all honesty, lads, 15 quid a game. It's it's a type of larceny. It's a disgusting move. I do believe it'll probably get down to a cheaper rate, because I think people will probably take a stand against it, but it shouldn't be done. But again, as I said to Andy earlier, people are going to pay.
Yeah, I don't think they will, personally. I mean, if I seen that news breaking, as in seen it advertised, £15 to watch Liverpool and Sheffield United, I just wouldn't. I'd laugh and I just wouldn't pay. It's the reaction to it that makes me laugh. Like, there's people saying, have they any idea what's going on around the world at the moment? Like, seriously, have you any idea what's going on around the world at the moment if you're concerned about watching Premier League football? And the majority of my timeline, I've never seen anyone on my timeline that I follow anyway that says they missed the Liverpool game. Nobody admits to that. So I assume we're all watching, mysteriously, somehow, watching football at every Liverpool game, every second of every, somehow, right? So don't worry about it. Don't pay it, and it'll go away. Anyone who's stupid enough to pay £15 to watch one game deserves that. You know what I mean? The rest of us will find somewhere or another watching the football. Sky have fallen flat on their face so many times with their new thinking, 3D football. They did pay-per-view football in the past before, and a whole host of things. They're I would imagine that TV broadcasters are fighting for their lives now, because they can't control what the IPTV providers are doing. These guys are locked down on secret servers all over the globe, and they're chasing their tail trying to find them, and they're doing big, massive IP blanket blocking, trying to get internet service providers on side. But then the internet service providers are thinking, fuck you, we're getting 50 quid a month. Yeah. You know what I mean? So as long as the service providers aren't the same people that are selling your football, they're never going to nail that one down completely either. They might get them to play ball, to be nice about it for a while. But it's the idea of subscription football in the current way is dying. And Sky know it, BT know it, Sky especially. I mean, they've invested so much money. But across the world, we've seen proposals. We've seen very, very good Netflix ideas. And that's the future of football. And they know it. Just don't pay the £15. Don't worry about it. Get on with your life. Look around your community and see all the more important stuff. And don't be worrying about what Sky are doing. Just don't pay the fucking money. Don't worry about these things. Honestly.
James.
How are you, sir?
What's your take on this paying for the football?
I think for me, it's not a case of the paying for the football that bothers me. I think the 15 quid just seems ridiculous. Like, for some of the games that have been mooted as being on, I think 15 quid is way above what people would be willing to pay. I think 5 quid seems reasonable. I'd be happy to pay that. But I think what it's done is it started a debate. And I think the debate will move us into an area like Andy touched on there. I think there is definitely something where we should be looking to move to some type of Netflix model where you're paying a monthly subscription for all of your club's games, or you have different tiers. You pay your £10 a month or whatever. You look at different countries across the globe. The access that they have to Premier League football in similar models to that is fantastic. We should not be living in a day and age now where you haven't got access to all games on TV without having to log on to dodgy websites and have dodgy streams. You should be able to access all Premier League games. So I think what it will do, it'll open up the conversations around some type of subscription model. And I'd be more than happy to pay 15, 20 quid a month for all Premier League games, across the season. And you get to pick and choose which games you watch. The most important thing for me is I'm not paying money for Martin Tyler to be commentator. If I'm paying 15 quid for the game, lads, I want to be able to change the commentator because I'm not listening to him. No chance.
Can I go the opposite way?
It's not like you, that, mate. Go on.
There's a reason why they chose 15 quid, right? It's going to be the highest price point that they know they'll get substantial audience buy-in without that makes it profitable enough to do it, right? And like everything, I remember when PlayStation Now was launched and it was 20 quid a month to get that. And when EA Access was launched, it was 10 quid a month to get that, right? Within a certain amount of time, if people don't buy these things, the prices reduce because they want to sell it, right? The idea here is for them to, they're trying to cover the revenue streams they can't get from the lack of fans being in the crowds. So this is an attempt to waylay some of those losses that they're experiencing because they've no ticket sales. So they've started at 15 quid. Now, I have to say, if everyone is on board and they don't believe that £15 is a fair price to pay, and remembering it's £10 to watch a Scottish Premier League match, £10 to watch a Scottish Premier League match.
That's a charity thing, though.
Like,
you know.
But at the same time, the amount of times that Liverpool aren't going to be on one of the main games that's on, so one of the broadcasted games, the Friday night game on BT, the Monday night game on Sky, the Saturday afternoon game on whatever it is, and the Sunday game on Sky, isn't going to be that many times because they're going to appear in one of the feeds of the matches that goes on because of who they are and where they are and the thing. So as Liverpool fans, we're going to have less issue in terms of having to pay the 15 quid for those matches. Fortunately, living here in America, we're able to see every single game at every kickoff time, so there's no issues. And going back to Andy's point, a lot of people are jumping in to moan about these are the exact same people. You're right, Andy. Will be doing almost a timeline moan of what's happening in the match on a 3 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday, which isn't being broadcast anywhere. So they're not going to pay the 15 quid as it is.
Most of them aren't Sky customers, let's face it.
And most of them are the same. Most of them are going to be the same people who have given out stink about the price of jerseys and won't buy a jersey off the club website. They'll go to DH Gate and buy a Ike one instead, right? Most of these people who are going to moan will moan no matter what, right? So whether you think it's the right thing or the wrong thing or the in-between thing, I think ultimately the Premier League, once the current set of rights goes out, they have to be looking at the NFL model. They have to be looking at the NBA model. They have to be looking at these models where they've created the NFL pass, where anyone in the world can buy the NFL pass on a weekly basis, say for 10 quid or 15 quid or whatever it is, right? And you can watch whatever match you want to watch that day. And you can also put on Red Zone, which has all the highlights of all big games that are going on. And you can pick whatever game you want.
Phil, Rajiv Kumar makes a point there, about the man who owns Sky, okay? People need to manage their expectations if they think that Sky TV are going to do anything morally correct.
The Bears.
What?
Just Dave Lennon. Dave Lennon is just shouting at me, "Go Bears!" He's right though. Go Bears! 4-1. Get in. Go on.
Yeah, I know. Look, if you're fuming over what Sky are trying to do, forget about it. I mean, I think we're all part of this machine. The money we're pumping into it. It's our money, really, that's allowing football teams to get 150 million a year. Crazy money like that. I mean, we're all part of it. You need to talk with your actions as opposed to giving out on Twitter. Giving out on Twitter is not going to do anything. Just stop paying it. Stop paying it and force these big corporations into making changes. Fuck it. Just stop giving out about it.
I just again, it's like the jersey. If you think it's not good value and you don't think there's a value threshold to be had there, don't pay for it. And don't moan about it. Right? It's by not paying for it, you'll drive them to lower the price anyway. If
is the issue though, Phil, is it not the amount of times that people are having to pay out to watch football matches? So whether it's BT, it's Sky, you had Amazon who signed a deal last year to show games over the festive period. Surely the solution here isn't having 3, 4, 5 different providers, like you said for the NFL. You just get all your games for your monthly subscription, and then you monopolize the market, and you can just roll that out across the globe and get a hell of a lot more money.
Can I just make a point on that, actually, right? So with Sky, you might be interested, if you pay your sub, you might be interested in watching football, golf, tennis, F1, all of that, right? What happens if we start paying subscription services to watch all our football, and then we need to pay another subscription service to watch all our golf, our tennis, our F1, you name it? We all watch different things, movies. I mean, before you know it, you're paying over 200 quid a month on your internet, your Amazon account, your Prime, Phil is shaking your head. Why? I mean, if you're paying 20 quid a month to watch all your football and you want to watch all your golf as well, you're paying another 20 on top of that. We're fucked either way.
It's much better value here in the States, honestly.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But Andy, this is the whole thing. People, as much as they complain about that, how many people are genuinely paying all that money out for all the various different subscriptions? I would argue that the majority of people have one subscription to something, and use alternative means to obtain the packages from other subscriptions elsewhere. And I'm not encouraging that behavior, but I'm just saying that's the likelihood is that that's what's happening, because you're not going to spend 50 quid on a Sky subscription and then another 25 quid on a BT subscription and then another 12 quid on a Netflix subscription and then 10 quid on a Disney Plus. And then
I do that. All of the stuff that you just said there, I've got. Genuinely not taking the piss.
Yeah,
I've actually got a subscription for every single thing that you've just said there.
And if you didn't, your attic would be twice the size it is.
With more pictures.
More pictures.
I wouldn't be buying cans of mojito from Lidl, put it that way.
I've no problem paying for subscription services when they, they're sound.
When they deliver.
Netflix is quality value. Spotify is quality value.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Spotify is great value.
Yeah.
Disney Plus, if you have a family, quality.
Can I just say though on that, Andy, and because it'll take us nicely into your topic, right? People have to realize that the less money that goes to the club that you support, the less they're going to be able to compete in the transfer window, the less they're going to be able to do various different things, right? So like the jerseys, if you don't buy the jerseys because of the new deal that's signed, then they're not going to have the same amount of money that they expected to have coming in.
And then the price of players down anyway, so...
Yeah, so it's like this power in this instance actually sits in the hands of people. And if there's genuinely a disgust for what's going on, we have the likes of SOS, we have the likes, let's organise the fan base and just say, no, blanket no, but I don't believe you'll be able to do that across, but it should be, because this isn't an international thing. Yeah. This is purely an English and Irish thing. This should be easily to organise to say, we're not paying it. As a fan base, we're not paying it. That's the end of it. And they will bring the price down very quickly. So let's get organised and let's go and attack them.
Oof. Yeah, lucky.
Now, on that, Andy, I know you wanted, and it sort of leads nicely in, because it will be greed. It will be everything that's going on. It will be clubs just want to ride the fans left, right, and centre. So, Andy, project big picture. I like this because when I'm thinking of a name for a project, you're always thinking of cunning names and smart names, but the lads came together and thought, we need a bigger picture here to what we need to do. So what will we call this project? Big picture. Yeah. That's it. That's it. Yeah, you have it in a nutshell.
It's straight off season 1 of The Apprentice, isn't it?
You got to think outside the box here, lads.
Yeah. I have business speak. Big picture. Let's go. I don't know. It's the deeply rooted dinosaur kind of mentality. It never goes away. It's interesting though when you read into it. I don't know whether many people bothered to read the article in the Telegraph, I think it was yesterday. But Rick Parry, it sounds like it's kind of damage limitation, and let's see what the EFL can get out of and the FA can get out of the inevitable. Big clubs are going to be playing in the European Super League eventually, or some form of it. In the next 5 years, there's going to be more European games.
A lot of weekends on European football.
Yeah. And there's going to be teams moving away, and their interests are going to be heavily weighted where the money is, and that's in Europe. So what Rick Parry suggested, I suppose, if you look at the big picture, is probably something that needs to be done, and whether you disagree with it or agree with it, but I'll go through some of the highlights of it. So obviously the teams, the amount of teams in the league gets reduced to 18. 2 teams go down automatically with the 16th team in the league joining the playoffs in the championship. There'll be no community shield. There'll be no league cup for teams playing in Europe. So that's going to result in obviously less domestic games, which means the bigger scope for the extended Champions League. Domestic TV revenue be more evenly spread in exchange for teams to be able to make more money in Europe. A later Premier League start allow more money spinning tours to Asia and America. Top teams, this is the big thing. Like the top teams basically become
power holders.
The power holders. It's no longer a democracy. Currently, it's a 20-team democracy. And all of a sudden, with this, there'll be a hierarchy. The longer you're in the Premier League, the more say you have. If you're a top 6 team and you've been in the Premier League since the beginning, you call all the shots. So all the teams coming up, brand new owners into the league. They're all going to be shafted, which means they kind of get their way eventually to a European Super League. And just in terms of money, the restructure means the EFL get 250 million a year, and then the FA get a once-off payoff of 100 million to just navigate themselves through the rest of this COVID. Oh yeah, and the other thing is that the restructure allows teams to loan out 15 players, meaning they work closer with lower league teams, which isn't really the case. It means they get the money ball more players. They bring in loads of players, loan them out, and then they increase their value and float them off to the lower leagues. So that's kind of the highlights of it. That's essentially where we're going. There's the only thing that could change there is through negotiations. The top 6 or the top 9 or the longer serving teams in the league don't get all that control. I mean, it would be scandalous to take away any kind of democracy.
That's where the objection seems to be, though, and having read the reaction online, it's the power that those sides are getting. I think that the good thing about it is, again, it's kind of similar to when we're talking about the pay-per-view games. It's opening a conversation, and I think when you're having a negotiation at the start of it, you throw some big numbers out and see where they land, and you usually end up in the middle. I think there's a lot of stuff within this which actually is quite good. I think removing the League Cup is a positive. I think when you look at the fixture congestion, particularly for the top sides, we're expecting, we're wheeling lads out to play 50, 60 games a season and expecting them to maintain performance levels. Yeah. It's just ridiculous. These lads aren't robots. I know they're highly paid, but they're ultimately not robots, and performance levels will dip. And in the age of social media, people don't seem to allow for people to have off days now. You've got to be at it, well, look at the levels that Liverpool and City have set. You literally have got to be at it, most weeks. I think there's other things in it that are interesting. The longer that COVID goes on, the EFL clubs are going to get more and more desperate. So they're going to agree to this however it's kind of put to them, because they're going to get a big handout. I think it's 250 million there or thereabouts. I think what it is, however you look at it and however they've tried to spin it, it's an opportunistic power grab by the big teams. And like you said, and I think you're dead right, this is putting us on the path to a European Super League in some way, shape or form. I think, and don't quote me, I think the next European deal is around 2024. So this is leading to that. And what it's ultimately going to do is free up more space for more European games, more money generated for those top sides, at the expense of them also having more power. So there's something about it that makes me feel uncomfortable at the moment, given the power it will give certain teams. But I do think at the same time there is some merit to some of the points being put forward.
Gar.
This proposed, I believe, by FSG back in 2017, if I've read rightly today, and then seemingly, it's amazing though, the journalists have only linked Liverpool United with it for and that, and I've read over the last couple of days and gone to myself, this is a bit harsh, because you can guarantee the City boys are behind it and every other powerful club are behind it, but wanting to start to break away a bit. To be realistic, lads, the lower sides need the money. We've seen too many go to the wall. We've seen too many AFL sides run badly. The fitting no proper purpose tests from the FA or whoever is doing them, the FL, have been so bad it's unbelievable, because you've seen Charlton recently under new ownership and run by head cases. So all of this needs to be put in line if it is going to happen, and lower league clubs are going to get this type of money, that it's put in line and it's done the right way, so clubs aren't going to the wall like we've seen recently with the likes of it was very recently enough, wasn't it? So listen, there is some good things from it, but as the lads have touched on there is a lot you'd be quite sceptical about.
I'll read out a few comments and then I'll give you an idea of where my head is on this one, right? But as Chris Brack says, the big gripe in the press is giving more power to the big six, but the good idea is distributing money better and reducing fixtures. Fixture congestion is a big issue, especially with Champions League expanding, which, Jamie, that goes back to your point, 2024 will be the expanded Champions League. Having a look down, Mohammed Jogi says, these suits, and Jogi, if I incorrectly pronounced your name, I absolutely do not apologise. I don't have
Sure, it's not his real name, so we won't take much offense.
It's like it's the internet. Nothing's real. These suits are going to ruin football eventually. Too much nonsense and money. It's football. Good point. And Dicko, that must be Ray Dicko's brother. He's locked up in his bedroom now because of level 3. Wild how clubs like Bury went out of business. Yeah, clubs like Tottenham who had a government loan getting rebates. Kev O'Sullivan says eventually the top 6 will tell you for the fuck off. I want to come back to that point in a second. Midnight Toker, everyone thinks they're fucking Mystic Meg. That's a fair point. That is. Especially Jamie, who was saying don't quote him on something that's going to happen in 4 years. Jamie, I don't think it's 3 weeks' time.
I've been called a lot worse than Mystic Meg. I'll take that.
David Moyes says this will stabilise the cash flows for the top clubs and provide a short-term liquidity injection to the lesser sides, but will destroy smaller clubs from rising from above the glass ceiling.
And we get called Mystic
David. Nice of David Moyes to call back in. Is Arsene in with us again tonight as well?
Moyes, Arsene,
huh? So, look, I'm again being the biggest Tory in the room. I think this makes sense.
Jesus, Phil.
Oh my God!
I genuinely think this makes sense. If you step back from, we're Liverpool fans, right? And I'm being honest here. The only way you prevent a European league is letting the top teams have control of the domestic league, and I'm talking about in terms of revenue streams, etc. around it, right? The idea that it'd be unfair on the smaller teams coming up. Okay, lads, what smaller teams have come up in the last 25 years that weren't subject to a huge cash injection by some foreign owners? Chelsea wouldn't exist today if it wasn't for Abramovich's money. City wouldn't exist today if it wasn't for the Sheik's money coming in at Manchester. You'd literally have at this moment in time United, Liverpool, Spurs, and Arsenal. That's what it's been for the best part of 50 odd years. Like, this is what we're talking. We're not talking about anything that's revolutionary here, right? Even when it comes to Everton, they've had to go and get this fella Pikachu or something from Pokemon to come in and take over the club and put money in, and he's put like 700 million into the club. He didn't bother. He told them about an underwater stadium and then just put all the money into the players instead, right? But like, the idea of a glass ceiling is already there. Clubs aren't breaking into the top 6. We look at Leicester; they've had 2 huge runs in 10 years. One wins the league in a freak year, and last year they don't break top 4. When they should have had top 4 wrapped up from February going on. So the idea that an expanded Champions League is UEFA's only hope of reining in the clubs from creating their own European Premier League, where the domestic trophy becomes a secondary and ancillary part to it. And if the domestic FAs tell them to leave, the clubs will go, fine, we're off. But we are the viewership. There's a reason why they're the top 6. They are the viewership, and they are the viewer, and they will retain the viewership. And when we were talking about pay-per-views earlier on, it all boils back to it. Who in God's green earth will want to watch Burnley against Aston Villa? About 7 people. About 7 people outside the people that are in the ground, right? Who Sheffield United against, I don't know. I don't even know half the teams in the league. It's like looking at an old Division 3. Like, there is no attraction outside of these big names. And that's what the global attraction of the Premier League is. At this moment in time, 6 teams can realistically expect to go into the season and challenge for the league. We know that generally it's only 2 to 3 teams realistically challenge for the league, but 6 teams have envisioned the idea that they can go and win the league. That's not happening anywhere else in Europe. So by doing this, you probably do changes in reality nothing, with the exception of those teams coming up and those teams in the lower leagues having a better chance of getting in and being one of those teams outside the top 6 in the league. And when it comes to winning off League Cups, I look, I'm a fan of the League Cup, not hate the FA Cup. It's a disgusting competition, should be set forward to never play it again. But like, if it means
classic Phil there, he drops these absolute bombs and then just like scurries off onto another conversation. Do you see that?
But it is genuinely, I thoroughly believe that in reality we're talking about solidifying the status quo, and all this will allow the teams in the top 6 to challenge at the very top of Europe, because with PSG and other clubs, other leagues allowing third-party ownership, foreign-party ownership in, there's a greater challenge to them not being able to compete at the European level than it is at the domestic level. Sorry, Jamie, do you want to jump in there?
No, I was going to say, do you think there's an element, because in football we like to, the romantic side of football, that you go into a season and everyone's got a chance to go and win the league and get into Europe. Do you think that people are objecting now because they're finally realising that romantic element doesn't exist, in that we are now pretty much admitting that the league is ran by the top, the top six to nine teams, or whatever you want to call it. And as a result of that, the rest of the teams are, dare I say, a little bit irrelevant.
Look, this goes back, and it's actually a point that John has just made there. If Liverpool United binned off the Premier League tomorrow, if the top six binned off the Premier League tomorrow, there wouldn't be £1 billion going for the TV rights.
Yeah.
They'd be lucky to get 300 million for those TV rights. They'd get better probably than the Dutch league, but it'd be on a par with the French league, because it'd be just something that people would put on. But all the money would go in whatever league that top six created. If that top six created, turned around and said, well, actually, we're going to create a league. We're going to call it the British League. And in that British League, we're going to have, we're going to take Celtic and Rangers, because we know that they have a huge, massive following in Scotland, and they have a traditional following in Ireland as well that goes on. So we know that they will bring in people to watch this, and they will pay to watch this. We will take the top six, and then we'll take, we'll turn around and say, well, actually, Cardiff, you could have a massive following if you wanted in terms of a Welsh side, and did something like that. And even turned to Ireland and said well, look, you've been crying out for a Premier League club for a year. We're going to put a franchise into Dublin and create this British League, which then feeds into the European Champions League as opposed to domestic leagues. Now, no, this is completely off the wall in terms of what it is. But they would immediately have a £1 billion TV rights deal from Sky or BT or an Amazon or a Google or somebody like that on the table. And the Premier League will be scurrying because they wouldn't have the same attraction that's there. All this is doing is actually solidifying the whole football triangle. And I think, was it Rory Smith or maybe David Kahn was at pains to point out today that this proposal is going to be accepted by the vast majority of clubs through the English League, which will mean that this proposal is going to be passed. So the only people that's going to kick up a fuss is the goals at West Ham, the moany fuckers and the rest of the clubs around in reality that think they should be in the top four but won't, and that's all this is going to be. So what we're looking at is essentially what's going to happen.
Did you say, Andy, it's based on the teams that have been in the league the longest?
Yeah.
So and who do you know who it is currently? Then who would those teams be? Do we know?
I think there's not at the moment. There's only 9 teams that have been in the league since the start.
Since it started, okay.
Yeah, and obviously your top 6 are 6 of those.
Well, except no, they aren't, because Manchester City aren't.
City aren't, they don't.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. But anyway,
but City will accept it because they know that based on the qualifiers within the space of 2 or 3 years that they will be one of the key owners of this league, essentially.
But look, I said it before when we thought on the other topic. We don't control football anymore. Like the people with the money control the football, so it's going to go whatever direction. I mean, even the whole Yarda show. I don't think there's even the FIFA generation would support the idea of moving away from an English league. Mm-hmm. I know, Phil, you're an exception to nearly every rule, but I don't think anyone really support this. But it's just going to happen anyway.
What would you rather watch, lads? Out of curiosity,
come here. I want to see Liverpool play Forest in the league again.
Yeah,
I want to see European Super League. If I could turn on the weekend and watch Liverpool play
half the games in the Champions League are shite anyway. And when they make more teams, and when there's 8 teams in the group and all, it's going to be even worse. You'd be traveling to. You're going to be playing the shit in Turkey, and
Andy, if it was a European Super League where you have here's your 15 teams and it's the 15 best teams in Europe, and then you have a second division in the European Super League and you have the next best 15, and there's no more of this 8 team groups and stuff like that, and it's a proper it would be just amazing. Imagine watching you play Barcelona twice. You play Madrid twice. Imagine going for a league where Barcelona, Madrid, Bayern Munich, Paris Saint-Germain, Juventus, Roma, AC Milan, Ajax are the top 6 in England. Imagine that was the league. Imagine that's what you watched on a weekly basis. Like your cup competitions become the ones that play.
Yeah, but you know what? You'd get bored. It would get boring after a time.
I just don't.
The beauty of playing Barcelona and Real Madrid is because every 5 years you play them.
Yeah.
Except it's Napoli and we play them every year. Twice.
Look, I don't know. I just love going to those European games because they feel special. It wouldn't feel special, the times you'd play Barcelona once every 5 or 6 years, and you'd be swapping scarves on the ground and all of that. I mean, that's the romance of football for me. You start playing them every week, what happens then? I mean, where are you going to get your once-offs?
When you play the League Cup in the English League, you send in the reserves. But isn't this going to also facilitate greater loan moves into the lower leagues as well? This is one the whole paybacks is that they're going to be able to loan out more players into the lower leagues.
Up to 15, isn't it?
But and they get some money. I mean, it's being pitched. It's being pitched very sneaky. You know, they have no problem giving up a few quid because they know like they're a share of the smaller pot for a share of the big pot. That's essentially what's happening. And
look at lads, football is money, and you can like it, lump it, whatever. There's no such thing as romance in football. It's all about money. The only people that have romance in football. See,
this is where I strongly disagree. Klopp has brought back romance in football.
Has he? Yeah. Winning has brought back.
Do a quick poll.
Actually,
Jamie, has Klopp brought back romance in football for you?
100%, mate.
Gar,
100%.
I agree. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, it's a long time. It's a long time since we've watched. Yeah, I mean, yesterday or a few days ago, when the official account were putting out 100 tweets all about Klopp's 5 years. I mean, you've got fucking tears running down your face looking at this shit, and it's amazing.
Mate, I was sat at the kitchen table the other day. I think I sent the YouTube video into the WhatsApp group. It was the top 10 moments defining Klopp or something. It was 15 minutes long. I sat at the kitchen table and the kids came out of the sitting room and I was crying at the kitchen table. They're like, Dad, what's up? And I was just watching this video of Klopp, mate, and I couldn't stop myself crying. He's a special man. And if you, Phil, even you with a swinging brick as a heart, mate, there must have been moments where, you know, you must have looked at it and went, okay, he's melting the icy exterior here. Come on.
The Champions League hugs. What a video. You could make how cinematic was it? You can make a movie out of it. Klopp just going around giving people hugs after winning, the way he's picking up the opposition. You know, you want to know what the words he's saying to them Spurs players. You want to know what he's saying to all our own players.
What about his letter to the young lad today, mate? If you don't cry or get misty-eyed at that, lads, you've got no heart. Then again, I cry at DIY SOS, so I can't really say much, to be fair. But
and then the night we officially won the league and they're on the hotel and Klopp is on the TV and he's crying. I mean, don't tell me there's no romance in football. Like he's reminded us fans, Liverpool fans, of what it's all about to be a supporter. He's able to align the objectives of these big multi-billionaire hedge funds and corporations to grassroots fan football as well. You know what I mean? He's trying to entertain us with the football and he's trying to pull on a heartstring, not trying to pull on the heartstrings, but he pulls on the heartstrings because that's what he is. His character is the charisma about him. He just makes you fall in love with football again. And I mean, kids growing up, how could they not support Liverpool looking at that?
No, Phil, this is.
I just don't buy into it. I know, like everyone is going to be, you know, in the comments. I know, I'm looking at the comments.
You like football again now, Phil? No, you do like football again now.
Yeah, but Jamie, and it takes me nicely into your topic, right? Because you know, your query is, do you prefer enjoyable football over winning? And for me, like, I don't give a shit about hugs. I don't care about letters to fans. I don't care about how fans feel. I don't care about anything except winning. All I care about is that we win. Right? If we had a pointy head standing at the top of the pitch and we horsed the ball to his head and his head scored 100 goals and we won the league, right? Might be attractive, but we would celebrate that with as much vigor as we have with Klopp's team, right? So ultimately, the best times and the most enjoyable times, I'll end up contradicting myself here, but is winning trophies, and they're the ones that people always remember. And winning leagues and winning Champions Leagues above all else can never ever be touched in terms of what goes on. When I think back to the 80s and and 1990, you think the football was incredible and gorgeous and amazing, and we go, and it's like, wow, look at the brilliantness that's there. Wow, amazing, right? Go back and watch the games. There's lots of just back passing to the keeper, picking up and rolling out and pass to the keeper. There wasn't flowing football. There wasn't anything like that, right? the reason why Klopp looks amazing, the reason why he's doing all this type of stuff, and it is in his nature, and I love that about him because he's doing the same thing at Dortmund. You look at the Dortmund fans; they absolutely adore him, and I've absolutely no issue what he does because the fans in the main love that stuff, right? They buy into it. I'm looking at you, Andy. You're like a little kid at Christmas. Whenever Klopp does something, if he wiped his arse, right, and then held it up, probably be a picture of Bob Paisley or something like that. You'd be putting that video out all over the place, right? So, I'm saying to you, there's at this moment in time, he is the embodiment of what we've always wanted for a Liverpool manager since 1990. Right? We've heard about the raffle stuff and everything, but it doesn't even come close because he gets what we like, which is fast-flowing, attacking football that wins matches and wins trophies. And what he does on top of that is just remind us what was great to be Liverpool fans back in the 80s when we just dominated football. Right? That's literally what it is. But when it comes to romance, I just don't buy into it. I love it because we're winning. As soon as we start losing, it's not going to be fun anymore. Honestly.
Yeah, so enjoy it while it lasts.
Absolutely. But when it comes down to Jamie's choice of quality over winning, I'll take winning every day of the week. I was happy to see us grind out Scaldy 1-0 last year because that's the growth in the team. Jamie,
that's you. I think there's, if you look at fans in general now, if you look at Ireland, for example, at the moment, they're going through a bit of a transitional period. They're trying to play out from the back. They played some better football, probably what they were used to against Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill and his side were slammed in the press and by fans, but ultimately he got them to major tournaments. So the question is it about succeeding? Because for Ireland to get to major tournaments, that is success. No, it's unrealistic to think that they're going to go and compete for the tournaments. Getting there is an achievement. Whereas if you look at, let's say Liverpool is a more recent example. Some of the football that was served up under Gerard Houllier, he won us trophies. You're a big fan of Gerard, as I know, Phil. He was, successful, won us trophies. Some of the football wasn't great. If you look at Brendan Rodgers, a lot of fans would say that was a lot of the most fun that they've had as a Liverpool fan watching that team, but ultimately we came away with no trophies. Klopp has obviously been able to get the perfect marriage. So, we are incredibly lucky to have him as a manager. We get to enjoy the football. He pulls on the heartstrings and we're the best team in the world. But if you look at other clubs, do you think it's enough nowadays to just win football matches? Or do you think that fans expect performances as well as winning football? Which comes out on top?
It's balance, isn't it? It's a
but
balance.
Is it realistic for some teams to get that balance?
I don't think it's possible for some teams to win games beautifully. You have to have financial backing, you have to have the right manager, the right players there when the manager comes in to get that going, because managers don't last very long. So as a Liverpool fan, first and foremost, you want trophies, right? I admit that. I mean, I'd take winning the league every year and play shit football. Of course you would. If you're hand on the heart, if you're honest with yourself, you want to win trophies. But eventually you get bored and you want a bit of good football as well. So I think it's about, first, a kind of sustainable thing. I think it's about finding a balance. You don't want to see your team embarrass themselves defensively, and you want to see them attack as well. So, I mean, over the years, I think West Ham, kind of a journey team, they've always prided themselves on playing nice football. Yeah. But then some of the better seasons they've had is when they've had Allardyce and they've played shit football. So ask their fans. But I think if you're up around the top, Liverpool, City, teams like Spurs, United, Chelsea, there's no excuse to play shit football. You shouldn't be sacrificing anything over trying to entertain your fans. So I think the big teams can afford that balance. But any team that comes up into the league who tries to play decent football, like Norwich, they go back down.
Well, can I just make a point? And I think Slackline Egypt was where I wanted to go with this. And I think, Jamie, it's a more interesting sort of nuance to your question. I don't believe it's possible to win with shit football. Okay.
So I'm thinking of examples. I'm trying to think of examples. Jose did it at Man United, no?
He didn't win. He didn't win the league.
He won trophies.
He won trophies, though. And like Andy
lads,
says, it's building blocks now. It's because you can't just come and win the clean sweep. First of all, it's trophies. It's trophies first, then that gives you the platform to go on and play the attractive football.
But that isn't what Klopp did, is
well,
it?
I think, Phil, I kind of agree. I kind of get your point there. If you play shit football all season, you're going to pick up a lot of draws.
Yeah,
and you can't win leagues with draws.
Yeah. Like
so it's a cup strategy because you can definitely do that.
Yeah.
Julia is a classic example. Failed in Champions League, failed in the league, right? But won League Cups,
it's a good
UEFA Cups, and FA Cups, right? I truly believe that you are very unlikely to win major trophies playing a shit brand of football. It has to have a tactical nuance that makes it attractive to watch.
Do you get me? That's a good point. Yeah.
So when everyone is there having a go at me saying that I have no emotions and I'm emotionless and that there's something wrong with me about the romance of football, I just don't believe it's possible to win leagues with shit football. Even when the year that Simeone won the league in Spain against the Real Madrid and the Barcelona team, if you looked at it, it wasn't the classic Simeone that we're used to, which is just sit and deep. He had a team that had lots of really good attacking fair players on the pitch.
I agree with you, and a really good back four and a really good midfield and his front players weren't bad either. And if you look at the Milans over the years or the Juves, Liverpool now, yes, you need to have each component that is right. And we're lucky, obviously, we're going through that transition where we're looking at a back four that's good, a midfield that does everything that it needs to do, and a front three that is absolutely out of this world. And if you go back through history, and I know you've touched on the boring sides, the cup sides, and we did it for years under Julia in cups as well. Let's not forget. And Rafa at times in the Champions League, you've touched on a feeling, and you're right that the best always have the back four sorted, the midfield and the front. It's always a joy to watch, and I agree with you on that one.
Very rarely in modern football is a winning team. Sorry, is a team that looks to out-tactic the other team, the team that wins the league, purely because, as Andy says, it leads to draws. If you think of Rafa's greatest problem was he overanalyzed what he wanted to do and set out a stall to make sure he couldn't be beaten, and then to go and win the game.
Champions League syndrome.
Yeah. Honestly, I think he overthinks it. It's way too tactical. If he just went and attacked it like he does Wolves or a Leeds or something like that, then he'd have a much better chance of winning the Champions League because he'd stop thinking about it and just start thinking about how to win.
Just Kevin O'Sullivan's comment there. Leicester were got off the watch. Yeah, Leicester won the league on a very, very low points accumulation.
That was the year Arsenal should have won the league under Wenger and threw that thing away.
Absolutely. So it kind of goes to show on your normal league, you won't really win by playing shit football. Now I have to say, I would take Ireland playing Leicester football. They did excite me sometimes when the ball did get pumped forward and Vardy ran in a goal. I mean, it was 90 miles an hour football, and the effort was incredible that year. I mean, I have to say,
I think there was one game away to City that stood out, and it was just like it was the speed at which they broke. City had all of the ball, and then it was just the ultimate sucker punch. Just 1, 2, 3, boom, goal. I thought it was exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're watching a game and the opposition are kicking lumps out, I know they weren't really kicking lumps out, but when they see them putting in so much effort, it is a joy to behold too. It doesn't have to be fancy patterns on the pitch or attacking the whole game. But I mean, most of us, enjoy variations in the type of football, and I think the league probably needed that season where Leicester won as well.
Yeah, but listen, I come back to it. The way I still truly believe that to win a league and to win Champions Leagues, you have to play good quality football. And that was the question Jamie put. Would you take winning over good quality? I don't think you can have one without the other. You could win a cup, and I'm not interested in them.
Yeah, I think you've made me think of it from a different perspective. I think if you're going to win the league consistently over the course of a season, you have to be confident enough to impose your style of play on the opposition. And even when things go wrong, as they invariably would over the course of a season, the team still trust the process. You're not adjusting your setup to try and strangle the opposition or stop them playing. It's about trusting the process, no matter what happens, becoming problem solvers rather than trying to stop the other team. So you make a fair point, Phil. I will give you that.
Thanks, buddy. That's sometimes I'm not just trying to wind people up, but I am. I do talk football. I'm very disappointed that the Cornwall Caravan Park didn't turn up tonight, Andy. I wanted to see comments from the lads.
Yeah, and Arsene Wenger bottled it tonight. In fairness to Moisey, he's flying the flag for all the heroes in the comments.
Yeah. I hope that Arsene Wenger is real and isn't just one of my borners. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, where are we going to? Do we have anything else to talk? Jamie, give us a plug there for your old podcast.
Oh, the Boot Room podcast. Thank you very much, Phil. Very kind of you. Yeah, we're on tomorrow night. I don't know if you've seen it on social media today. I got into a bit of back and forth with a Daily Mail reporter, which was quite interesting. So that's going to be my first topic for tomorrow's podcast, which will be out sometime early Wednesday morning. What was
just give us a kind of an idea, the back and forth?
So I basically said he made a comment basically about Jack Grealish and tried to dismiss Jack Grealish's ability. Now, I'm a huge Jack Grealish fan. I think he's genuinely a superb player, kind of the opposite to what English coaches have tried to build over the years. Technically good footballer who looks to create. So I kind of tweeted out, basically this reporter had turned around and said, you can't really classify Jack Grealish's performance as impressive because it was against Wales B team. So I basically tweeted something out about imagine watching that game and coming out with that viewpoint, basically. And then the guy replied, Mike Keegan, his name was, from the Daily Mail. He gets a little bit temperamental when it comes to fan media. He's got a history of that in the past. He turned around. It was quite a good put down, to be fair. He said, imagine running a podcast with less than 1,000 followers. So it's like, fair point. He's got me there. It was a good one. So anyway, yeah, we had a lot of back and forth. And I'm pleased to say that Mike has now resulted in us getting an extra 400 followers. So we're now at 1,259. So thanks for that, Mike. I'll be picking that up onto
without being rising to our biting. You're doing that podcast as a hobby. His profession is journalism and he's working for the Daily Mail. So 100%. When Gordon Ramsay goes working for McDonald's, you know what I mean? That's your equivalent to these shitheads. So
it was a strange one. It backfired on him. It definitely backfired on him. The comments, I'll send you the link in a bit. It made for some interesting reading.
Yeah.
I sort of agree with him though.
Why am I not surprised, Phil?
Gar, what do you want to plug?
I don't know if you know, lads, we've Home Farm, we've been doing a sponsored cycle, a static cycle for Breast Cancer Ireland. It was supposed to be 300k over the last, 3,000k over the last 2 Saturdays. So we've now put it up to 10,000k because we've surpassed the 3,000 this Saturday gone. So we're doing really well. It's for Breast Cancer Research Ireland, raising a lot of money, obviously, for a charity that sort of touches, I suppose, everyone in life. So everyone's got involved, Phil, from under 12s teams to parents to people on committees. So everyone's jumping on the bikes and doing their bit as well. And some of the Dublin GAA crew, in fairness, we're doing a bit for us down Moby Road the weekend as well, and getting sponsorship off people who are having coffees around there. So really good stuff going on, I suppose, and harder times and getting people out on a Saturday afternoon when there's not really much else on at the moment. So that's where we're doing at the moment, lads. So if you see the link going around to where you have anything to spare, just throw it over. Be much appreciated.
Okay. So yeah, everyone out there, listen, you'll see the link on Gar's thing. Go off and give him money. Basically, if you're not, like, instead of giving 15 quid to watch some shit on Sky, give the 15 quid to Gar instead. Right, it's gone to a much better cause than what it is. And if you've got 30 quid, give 15 to Jamie as well, so we can buy some more followers on the Google. So when Keith comes back, he'll have 2,000.
I need them, mate. I need them.
give it a follow as well. If you're listening, if you're one of the 7 listeners, give him a follow. I'm sure
exactly.
You're already. And if you want to plug.
No, just Gav's doing wonderful shows for the rest of the week, so listen up. That's it. What?
To what?
All the shows, obviously.
The transfer committee show or whatever there's the transfer agenda committee.
Yeah, midweek fix all on. I know Friday night there's going to be the preview of the Everton game, and that promises to be a good one.
Yeah, the Friday Foresight or whatever it's called.
To be fair to Gav, there is no harder working man in showbiz. That guy puts in some shit.
Yeah. There isn't. And so, look, to everyone watching out there and listening tonight, thanks for all your comments. I know we've gone through a few. I know that I'm definitely the most favourite host in this because he's. And the good news is I'll be back at loads, so I'm not going anywhere. I haven't gone anywhere since 2013.
It's the heel approach. It's worked for you for long enough.
Yeah, I am Vince McMahon. I'd love to be Jim McMahon. Dave, then forwards to lead Chicago to the bowl, maybe if it's the Cotton Bowl. Right, so look, the biggest thing I want everyone who's listening and tuning in tonight, and we'll look at it tomorrow and listen tomorrow when we get out there, is wear your fucking masks, sanitize your fucking hands, and don't be getting pissed, right? Because when you get pissed, all you want to do is hug and tell and shout at people. And it's like this. If you want to come on and shout, we'll give you a spot on the podcast. You come on and shout if you want, right? You can shout on your own in a room, and that's absolutely fine. But genuinely, wear your masks, sanitize your hands, and be good. Because the longer you take the piss, the longer this shit goes on, right? The longer you can't get into the ground, the longer you can't go to Benidorm and get like €2 bottles of concrete.
Is Benidorm over that way?
It is not over that way. It's over that way, right?
All right. Okay.
Honestly, the only way we get out of this is by doing it together. So if you want to get back into Anfield soon, let's pull together. No matter what the governments do, if we just stop infecting each other, they'll eventually have to give in and let us back out and to play again. Okay. Now, that's been the podcast. I don't have as hairy hands as Richard Keys, according to Ada there. I'll try growing. I'll get some hand wigs next week. But anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for choosing in. Thanks for liking and watching.
Choosing in next week.
Choosing in. This is a bit cheaper than Sky's pay-per-view, and it's more fun. Good night and God bless.
Always free.
Always free.